Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I'm not going to have responsive chanting of this because this is not a verse. Sorry, there's no meter to chant it with. Well, that's it, the whole point. It's not a shloka. It's Gadya bolte. Prose. It's called. It's written here. Text 8. It's just writing without any. It's not broken into any meter. Vidvan Gauranga Das, what are you? Adhikari. What's this? When there's Bhagavat Parayana, then the shlokas will be chanted. How will this Gadya be chanted, this prose section? Any rules for that? In a lot of shastras, not in verses, isn't it? Yeah. But is there responsive chanting of that? Traditionally, any idea? For Gadya also. But is there any, there's no meter. So. But then you'll have to break at some point, because it's not expected that the brahmacharis who are learning by hearing can, if you just chant, say 100 words at one time, they won't. You have to break. So the guru who's chanting, he will arbitrarily break it, is it? Yeah, but that's there. But I see. But that can be quite long. Have to be sharp Gurukul kids to remember it all. Okay. So anyway, I'll just chant it. Tasya ha va ena kunaka uchaya etasmin krita nijabhimanasya harahastat poshana palana lalana prina nanudhyanenatma niyama sahayama purusha paricharyadaya ekaikasha Katipayena ganena viyujamana kila sarava evodavasmin. Translation. Gradually Maharaj Bharat became very affectionate toward the deer. He began to raise it and maintain it by giving it grass. He was always careful to protect it from the attacks of tigers and other animals. When it itched, he petted it. And in this way, he always tried to keep it in a comfortable condition. He sometimes kissed it out of love. Being attached to raising the deer, Maharaj Bharat forgot the rules and regulations for the advancement of spiritual life, and he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After a few days, he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. Purport. From this, we can understand how we have to be very cautious in executing our spiritual duties by observing the rules and regulations and regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If we neglect doing this, we will eventually fall down We must rise early in the morning, bathe, attend Mangalarati, worship the deities, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, study the Vedic literatures and follow all the rules prescribed by the acharyas and the spiritual master. If we deviate from this process, we may fall down even though we may be very highly advanced. As stated in the Bhagavad-gita, Yagya dana tapa karma natyajang karyameva tat yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity and penance purify even the great soul. End of translation of that verse. Even if one is in the renounced order, he should never give up the regulative principles. He should worship the deity and give his time and life to the service of Krishna. He should also continue following the rules and regulations of austerity and penance. These things cannot be given up. One should not think oneself very advanced simply because one has accepted the sannyas order. The activities of Bharat Maharaj should be carefully studied for one's spiritual advancement. This whole episode is an instance of the sequence which is outlined in Bhagavad-gita by Lord Krishna, the sequence of fall down. Dhyayato vishayan pungsang sangaste shupajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha. By meditating upon the objects of the senses, one becomes attached to them. From attachment arises desire. So the process continues with kodo bijay, kamat kodo bijayate. So it goes on. There's calm from the desire, then comes anger or frustration, and eventually one falls down. Now, this deer that Bharat Maharaj became attracted to would not normally be considered an object of sense gratification. Bharat Maharaj was performing selfless service to the deer. Ever heard that? Selfless service. Selfless service. In the whole range of human experience, activities and aspirations, there is nothing higher than selfless service. But we have to know what is the vishay, dhyato vishayan. What is the vishay, what is the subject of that selfless service? Not mukhyamana vishayam, only vishayam. It's supposed to be ekanta bhakti. Well, we may think that, Krishna is the main object of our service, but there are others also. But the proper subject of our, or who our service should be offered to is to Krishna. In technical language also, Krishna is the object of our service, and he's this, in the matter of prem, Krishna is the subject, and then the receptacle of that is the devotee, headed by Srimati Radhika. So, although Bharat Maharaj's service to the deer was certainly selfless, it was to the wrong, it was centered on the wrong person. His selfless service was directed to the wrong direction, not to Krishna. He had no intention in the first place to give up his service to Krishna, but he became diverted, and this deer attracted his mind. As you can imagine, deer, and especially a baby deer, they're very beautiful and attractive animals. And when one being is dependent on another and very affectionate, then the one who is providing this supposed protection naturally feels attracted toward that being who they are protecting. And the very common example in the Western world is that of dogs. The dog very willingly takes the position of a pure devotee in relation to its master. It recognizes that I am dependent on the master. And it takes full shelter of the master and is very affectionate. Demonstrates its affection by when the master comes, it wags its tail and might even jump up and down barking in excitement. Whereas your wife, if you have one, might not even lift her head to notice you when you come home. Actually, I saw something from the 1940s. It was something in a woman's magazine in America, and saying how when the man comes home, the woman has to greet him nicely, and that was just the culture. But nowadays, if there is actually husband and wife, then the husband might get back from work before the wife. So the dog is central in Western culture. And even in the Western world, many of our devotees, they keep dogs. Because Vedic culture, that's not important. The main thing is to love Krishna. But that's the whole point of Vedic culture. Everything is arranged, organized to facilitate development of love of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada often pointed out that human life is meant for development of love of God, but in the Western world is more prominent love of dog. So as long as we have not developed our revived, as long as the relationship with Krishna is not revived, then there is always the temptation to devolve toward mundane, affectionate relationship. This happened with Bharat Maharaj, who was an advanced devotee. But the immediate presence of the deer took his attention away from his worship of Krishna. Bharat Maharaj had the regular practice of sitting and meditating on Vishnu. But he would sit down and he would start thinking about the deer. And the deer, seeing himself neglected by Bharat Maharaj, who was not petting and fawning and saying "ooh" to it, the deer would come and push with his nose against the body of Bharat Maharaj and disturb his so-called meditation. So while on the process of reviving our natural attraction to Krishna, we have to be very careful not to be caught in mundane affection. And it is a very real risk for even devotees. If they keep dogs, that they may become a dog in their next life due to attraction to the dog, especially if they don't assiduously engage in the activities of devotional service, as Srila Prabhupada has pointed out in this purport that he has given here. And in fact, we would expect that it's more likely that devotees who are not assiduously following the process of devotional service who become more inclined to have a pet dog. If we're not getting taste from Krishna conscious activities, then because it is our nature to want affection, then we may look for it elsewhere. And in the days where there used to be brahmachari ashrams in the Western world, in our ISKCON temples, that was the norm. That was always warned to the brahmacharis, that if we don't get taste in Krishna conscious activities, if we don't apply ourselves to that, then we'll look for taste in the form of a pretty wife. Which raises another issue, that in householder life, should we be affectionate, or is that all maya? We have to channel our devotion toward Krishna and not become involved in the affection of family life. But this, taking this principle to the extreme is, it simply destroys any family life. Krishna states in Bhagavad-gita, Sakta anabhishvanga putra dara grihadishu, that a person in knowledge is not attached to children, wife, home, etc. But that doesn't mean that one just acts like a stone in relation to the family members. Rather, a devotee, his affection is for Krishna, but that doesn't mean that he is just cut off to everyone and everything else. Rather, his affection expands to everyone else. As we hear, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that we should see all living beings just like people see their family. We should see the whole world as our family. So, this purport, Srila Prabhupada is stressing the need to stick to the basic principles of devotional service. Even if one is an advanced devotee. Someone might think, well, now I'm an advanced devotee. That is the first, thinking like that is the first symptom that one is not an advanced devotee. So even if one is an advanced devotee, one should follow all the basic principles of devotional service. But if someone thinks they're advanced, they're not advanced, so that means that everyone should follow. The idea that I'm advanced so I don't need to follow these rules, it's a very strange way of thinking. Because the activities that are recommended, rising early, chanting Hare Krishna, these are rules for the beginning devotees, but they are naturally and happily engaged in by the advanced devotees. Not that now I'm advanced so I can sleep till 9 o'clock in the morning, I don't have to get up and do sadhana. But rather one who is advanced will like to rise earlier, not later, and engage in more activities of devotional service. Sometimes there is a misunderstanding that, well, I'm a devotee and Krishna loves me, so Krishna will deliver me. As soon as one thinks, I am a devotee, one is in a very dangerous situation. That doesn't mean one to think, I'm a non-devotee, and then go out and eat meat and drink wine and do all forbidden activities. But one should think, I am aspiring to be a servant of the devotee. Srila Prabhupada instructed one of his disciples sent a poem that he had written, in which, in the poem, he writes, this devotee is praying to you, Krishna, something like this. Srila Prabhupada instructed that devotee, devotee doesn't think he's devotee. He doesn't write that, well, I'm your devotee, I'm a devotee. He thinks, I'm just trying to become a devotee. Often we hear devotees say things, we can refer to them as devotees, but we ourselves should not refer to ourselves like that. So we often hear that, well, when I first became a devotee, devotees saying things like that. Often we are asked questions like this, how long have you been a devotee? Trying, or at least making some kind of pretense or show of trying for so long. To be a devotee is a very advanced position. And that can be attained. It's not that it's unattainable. But there is a process given. Bharat Maharaj was in the process. He had gone a long way along the process. We are given the process that Srila Prabhupada has summarized here. Rise early in the morning, bathe, attend Mangalarti, worship the deities, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, study the Vedic literature, and follow all the rules prescribed by the acharyas and the spiritual masters. Srila Prabhupada continues, if we deviate from this process, we may fall down even though we may be very highly advanced. Actually, if one is very highly advanced, one will not want to deviate from this process. He'll take pleasure in it. So this idea that, well, I'm a devotee and Krishna will deliver me. You don't really have to worry about following all these things. Not going to university and expecting an honorary degree. Sometimes universities award an honorary degree to persons who have never studied the course at that university or any other university. If someone excels in a certain field, even without having taken formal training, in recognition of their contribution to that field, they may be awarded an honorary degree. But if one thinks, well, I won't go to university and study anything, I'll just wait for some university to give me an honorary degree, and such a way of thinking is foolish. So there is no doubt that the mercy of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. But his mercy manifests largely as his instruction. There is a process of devotional service which helps to gradually take the mind away from all that is illusory and bring it to be always thinking of Krishna. And the mercy of the Guru is that he teaches this process, both by precept, by speaking it, teaching it, and by practice, by personally showing it. Achinoti yashastrani acharya sthapyatyapi swayam acharate yasmad acharyastena kirtitaha. The definition of an acharya is that he knows, teaches, and establishes and teaches by his personal example the principles of Shastra. So one might think, well, I can just learn it all from a book. Do it yourself, Bhakti. How to become a pure devotee in 30 days. But as Srila Prabhupada writes in the first sentence of the purport previous to this, in one short sentence, he summarizes so much important instruction. The laws of nature work in subtle ways unknown to us. Very important statement. So the laws of nature may be working on us and we're not even aware of that. So that's why we may think that we're actually very advanced, but we're actually not, but because we're not aware of how Maya is working on us. Therefore this process of devotional service is given. But even if we follow all these rules and regulations, we still might not make much advancement, because advancement in devotional service depends upon the attitude of the performer. So if there are defects in our whole outlook and approach to devotional service, even though we follow the rules and regulations very strictly, we might not make proper progress. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned some of the common obstructions to advancement in devotional service. Nishedacha kutinati jibe hingshang lab puja pratishta jato upashakagan. He said that to behave in ways that are forbidden, to be diplomatic, to be envious, inimical to other living beings. And especially this line is the second line, or these words, Lab, Puja, Pratishta. These are often, particularly these three are mentioned repeatedly as the common snares that halt our spiritual progress. The desire for wealth, the desire for respect, the desire for position, all of these are weeds which choke the creeper of devotional service. So Guru is also required to guide us as we go along with the process, to help us to imbibe the right attitude. The various subtle misunderstandings that we may have, they should be addressed. Now, of course, the mercy of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. And Srila Prabhupada did make statements such as, said to have said, it's a well-known quote, that If you just hold on to my dhoti, I'll take you back to Godhead. But we should consider exactly what that means. This saying is ascribed to Srila Prabhupada. So what does that mean? Obviously it's not literal. If you tried to just hold on to Srila Prabhupada's dhoti all the time, I don't think he'd be pleased if you even tried to hold on to it for 1 second. To literally grab it and hold on to it. And of the clothes that Srila Prabhupada wore, if someone finds out and just holds on to it throughout his life, to literally hold on to it, that also, it's not what is meant by this statement. So what does it mean exactly? Does it mean to roar at the top of our voice, Jai Srila Prabhupada? Well, that is very nice. But there has to be more to it than this. Otherwise, we fall into one of the illogical situations, one of the misunderstandings that typify Christianity. There is this theological mistake in Christianity that if you just believe in Jesus, Jesus will save you. To believe in Jesus means to say that I believe, do you know what the formula exactly? I believe that Jesus is my Lord and Master and Savior, something like that you're supposed to say. You just have to say that and then you're saved. Then it doesn't matter what else you do, you're saved. I didn't get that. That's from the born-again Christians. I was raised as a Catholic. It's a somewhat different culture. So, you have to accept Jesus into your heart. It's all very vague, not much defined. What does it mean to accept Jesus into your heart? Once, Srila Prabhupada, on a morning walk with his disciples, Srila Prabhupada, he took the position of the devil's advocate. Purva Pakshin, you could say. And it said that, he challenged his disciples who are walking with him. Well, what's wrong with Christianity? What would you say to Christians? And various devotees gave various things. And Srila Prabhupada counted them all. And eventually a devotee, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, gave a statement which Srila Prabhupada accepted. The devotee said that, if you claim to be followers of Jesus, why don't you follow his instructions? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, this is the point. So in the same way, if we only say Jai Srila Prabhupada and think that, Prabhupada's very merciful and whatever I do doesn't matter because Prabhupada will save me, then we're in exactly the same position as this Christianity, which it doesn't foster actual religious principles or love of God, because it is based on this cop-out, this mistake, which allows us to do all wrong things and think that anyway we're saved. We know for sure if someone is a bogus sadhu, if they just say, you just remember me and everything will be all right, Allah, Sai Baba and others. But a real sadhu gives instructions to people so that they may be sinless and so that they may progress either toward or on the path of God consciousness. The basic principles that Srila Prabhupada has outlined here, he repeats umpteen times in his letters to his disciples. Rise early, chant 16 rounds, attend Mangalarti, all these things. So if we invent this philosophy, we just Guru's mercy, that's all. But what are the instructions of the Guru? That is his mercy. If we take those instructions very seriously, then surely we will get his mercy and he will cover up our inabilities. But we have to at least do what he says. Srila Prabhupada, in another conversation, he said that if a person doesn't follow Krishna's instructions, then Krishna cannot help him. There's discussion about Krishna's mercy. You may say, Krishna cannot help you? Krishna is incapable of helping us? Now, of course, Krishna is fully capable of helping us. But we cannot stipulate how Krishna should help us. Krishna helps us by giving us the instructions by which we can revive our dormant Krishna consciousness. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Shadha Kabunai Shabanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Udoy. Love for Krishna is dormant within everyone's consciousness. That dormant love for Krishna is revived by the process of devotional service, which begins by hearing about Krishna. Aya mugdha jive nahi Krishna shvata gyan. Jibere kripa koile Krishna bedo puran. We're in Maya. Maya means ignorance. Therefore, our natural knowledge and love for Krishna is not apparent. We're bewildered by Maya. So Krishna, being merciful to the bewildered jivas, has given them the Vedic knowledge. And Krishna has given us, Srila Prabhupada went on to explain in this conversation, that Krishna has given us minute independence. So if we don't follow the instructions given by Krishna, then Krishna cannot help us. It's just like if you're fallen in a well and someone throws down a rope. You say, I don't want to be pulled up by a rope. Why don't you come down and put me on your shoulders and climb up the side of the well? Or we put some conditions. Okay, I'll hold on to the rope and then you pull me up. But before that, you have to throw me down a good meal. I'm hungry. No, we have to accept the help that Krishna gives us in the way that He gives it to us. So the idea that, we're just waiting for the mercy, that is the proper attitude of a devotee. But we should recognize the nature of Krishna's mercy, how it manifests, and accept the mercy in the form of the process of devotional service that is given to help purify us. And at the same time, pray for the mercy of Krishna, thinking that I'm incapable. It's not that go on. I've chanted 3 times 64 rounds for the last 64 years. Okay, break down the gates of Vaikuntha. I'm coming, folks. That means that someone who has such an attitude means they never chanted 1 round in their life. They might have, what's that word? They might have, I can't remember the word. They might have ejaculated the words Hare Krishna from their mouth, articulated. But they never, in their chanting, they never prayed, "Oh Krishna, oh energy of Krishna, please engage me in your service." Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Das Aranu Das Pratana Karoy Shada Narottama Das. Considering, Narottam Das sings that considering myself the servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm always praying for the mercy. So again we come to the point that advancement in devotional service depends on the attitude of the performer. So there are so many elements to consider. We have to follow the process of devotional service. Our attitude has to be proper. That proper attitude we can imbibe that. If we are sincere, we can imbibe that by associating with sincere and advanced devotees. So there are so many factors in making spiritual advancement. We have to get them all right. But then again, it's not just a mechanical formula. At the same time, we should know, if we sincerely apply ourselves to this process, then surely Krishna will help us. At the same time, we have to be very careful. We may be doing very well, and in Maya may come in some completely unimagined form and just pull us away. We are warned, don't watch pornography and don't go to bars, but we're not warned that be careful if a deer comes up. The heavy Maya, a little deer cub. In this case, Indra didn't send the Apsara army to tempt Bharat Maharaj. He escaped. He wasn't even offered that temptation. The attraction to beautiful women, that is a very powerful attraction of Maya. But you wouldn't think a little deer. What's that? A deer is going to make you fall down in devotional service. Attraction to that deer became the cause of fall down for Bharat Maharaj. But then again, if you think, well, I'm not going to be affectionate to anyone, then you're likely to make offenses by mistreating people. So it's It's a very subtle path. Durgang patas tat kavayo vadanti. It's not, in some ways devotional service is very easy. In other ways, the laws of nature work in subtle ways unknown to us. In hearing all this, we shouldn't become despondent. Definitely, Krishna's mercy, Srila Prabhupada's mercy, these are very powerful, and we should be confident of their help and their protection. But at the same time, we shouldn't take the mercy of Hari, Guru and Vaishnavas for granted. We have to make our effort also. And very tivrena, it should be a very intense effort, will attract the full mercy of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions about this, please? Want to say something? Yeah. Do you have the other mic here? But how are you going to translate? Are you going to translate it all at once when the question's finished? Okay. You have to change the... then you have to... How do you do? I see. Well, then you have to put that over... Anyway, up to you. You work it out. I think I had enough sunshine for now.
In Bhagavad-gita 3:31, Maharaj, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in the beginning practice of devotional service, one may not be able to follow all the rules and regulations. But if one is not resentful of those principles, then one will make advancements. You were basically making that point, I think. You tried your best. You may not come up to the topmost standard. You may not be able to follow everything, but if you continue enthusiastically trying, Krishna will help.
Yeah, the idea that if we may not be able to follow everything, but at the same time, if we try our best, we can be sure that Krishna will help. Yeah, that is definitely a fact. But I was also trying to point out that we should be careful of the cheating that we might even inadvertently indulge in. Self-cheating. What we may consider trying our best might not be our best. We may tend to make excuses for ourselves. Nowadays we hear a lot about the lenience of Srila Prabhupada. What that means? Lenience? It means liberality or forgiving, giving concessions, and forgiving shortcomings. That's exactly the right word. But Srila Prabhupada could be seemingly impossibly demanding also. Tamal Krishna Goswami recalled that Srila Prabhupada once told him to read his book, Srila Prabhupada's books, for minimum 2 hours daily. And Tamal Krishna Goswami replied that, well, I don't have time, Srila Prabhupada. And Tamal Krishna Goswami replied, no, Srila Prabhupada replied that, well, you have to make time. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj replied that, well, I'm sleeping maximum 5 hours daily, and he went through his whole schedule. I'm busy morning till night. At that time he was personally serving Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said to him, then anyway you sleep less. Which didn't seem physically possible for Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And there are several instances of this. Guru Kripa Prabhu also, he recounted an incident like this. That Prabhupada called him in the middle of the night once. And Prabhupada said, why are you sleeping? What are you doing? He said, I'm sleeping. Why are you sleeping? And he said, well, you know. And Prabhupada got in his case. Why are you sleeping? And Guru Kripa said, well, I'm not a pure devotee like you. And he said, why aren't you a pure devotee? And he really got on his case till he was almost crying. Why aren't you a pure devotee? So it's true that we should do our best, but at the same time, we shouldn't ever think that I am doing my best. That will lead to complacency, and complacency leads to fall down. The whole attitude of the Prakrita Sahajiyas, or false devotees, is that, well, we are devotees, Krishna loves us, so even if we do things that maybe are not correct, but anyway, we can do it because Krishna, He's very merciful. So unless we very clearly understand how to apply the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and the principle of how His mercy works, then we are likely to commandeer His mercy and as an excuse for us to be fallen. And that means that the flow of devotion, pure devotional service is diverted and spoiled. We can use Srila Prabhupada's instructions, which are only meant to lead us to pure devotional service, to lead us to hell. Once I got on the case of one of my godbrothers. I said, well, what's this getting up at 8 o'clock every morning? And he said, well, Prabhupada, he said that his father got up late every morning. So, neglecting Srila Prabhupada's multiple instructions to his disciples to rise early, he cited the case of Srila Prabhupada's father, who rose, what Srila Prabhupada said, a little late. And he was convinced that this is complete justification for him to rise at 8 o'clock every morning. So, we should understand very clearly. That's a maybe gross example of misusing Srila Prabhupada's instructions, but there may be others which are not so gross. It's like this whole idea that my study at school and my career, my working hard so I can get ahead in my career, that's all my devotional service. Now, that can be, in a secondary manner, someone's devotional service if they're fully focused under the order of their guru, that you have, this is the best way for you to perform devotional service for, I don't know, infiltrate the academy or whatever reason might be given. But it is regularly taught, as if it were part of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to hundreds of people who take interest in, young men who take interest in Krishna consciousness, because it conveniently saves them from having to consider what pure devotional service actually is, and allows them to go on with their material desires and think that it's pure devotional service. And they import the materialistic concept into devotional service, that someone who has a high university degree or a well-earning, reputable job, then they are doing very well. Someone who has a high university degree and who is a devotee is better than someone who has no degree, because they have more to sacrifice, or they're not doing it just for the money. So this is tweaking the instructions of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Tweaking means, you know what that means? It means making a slight adjustment. And the result is tremendous. So many dozens of young men join our movement, and so many hundreds of respectable people take to devotional service. But what kind of devotional service? Then you get them writing books. Instead of writing books about pure devotional service, a whole book on how to succeed as a student. And on one page in the 100-page plus book, it says that, well, you should also be religious, and you can chant the names of God such as, and then the Mahamantra is given. And that's the only allusion to anything to do with Krishna consciousness in the whole book. So it's very successful in making devotees, but they don't have a clear understanding of what devotional service is. It's very different to the attitude that Srila Prabhupada imbibed on his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When Srila Prabhupada superficially, as a member of Gandhi's independence movement or whatever it was, he argued with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that we need national independence first before we can promote Chaitanya Dev's teachings. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied that Krishna consciousness is so urgent it cannot wait for any political adjustment. Okay, I think we'll finish now. It's getting late and we have to do the prizes and everything. Another question? Okay. Is that all right? You're supposed to say you have time. All right. You're not. But the breaking the fast has to take, so-called fast. Is it? Okay.
Jiva is in ignorance, and when devotees, when they commit mistakes in devotional life, so they are influenced by Maya, and actually Jiva becomes responsible for committing mistakes, or actually Maya, because it's influence of Maya.
The influence of Maya causes the Jiva to make mistakes. So is the Jiva responsible or is Maya responsible? A man is in court and for having stabbed someone else to death. And he says to the judge, well, it was someone else who told me to do it. So does the murderer become free from his crime for having taken the bad advice? So Maya, that is her service to Krishna, to induce us to forget Krishna, a very unusual service. But in one way she helps to induce remembrance of Krishna by reifying the suffering which is natural by forgetting Krishna. Reifying means giving positive shape to. Purusha, or is that karya karna kartritve hetu prakriti ruchyate. Purusha sukha dukhanam bhuktridve hetu ruchyate. What goes on in this world, the mechanism of this world, is caused by Maya, material nature. But our own, the suffering and pleasure in this world of the individual living being is caused by himself. It's easy to understand. Otherwise, there again we come to the position of being a robot. Maya made me do it. We have free choice. We can use or misuse. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki